My name is Conchita Marusich, and I just finished a book called In Search of William Wolfskill, Journey to Find the Legacy. And it's about my great-great-grandfather, William Wolfskill. He was one of the Peña and Vaca family's neighbors. He had an adjoining land grant. It was called Rancho Rio de los Putos. And he received his land grant in 1842. Anyway, what happened was that William Wolfskill was a Mexican citizen, which is why he was able to get a land grant. His brother, John Reed Wolfskill, really wanted the land grant, but he was not a Mexican citizen, and so they would not give him a land grant, but only to his brother. So William applied for the land grant, and he was given it by Governor Alvarado, and John Reed came up from Southern California and started living on the land, and everything was fine. And then the drought of 1843 hit, and Vaca's cattle started coming onto the Wolfskill land. Now the problem was that the Peña Vaca land grant was really huge, and the boundaries gave it far more than the 10 leagues that it was supposed to be. And unfortunately, part of the Vaca and Peña's land grant ended up encompassing a little bit of the Wolfskills land grant. Part of the problem was that during that time, they used maps called diseños that were not very precise. The boundaries were the mountains to the left, or the river to the right, or the swamp, whatever. And you know, that's where a lot of these land grant conflicts arose from, was this lack of preciseness in the maps. So when Vaca's cattle started coming onto the Wolfskill land, Vaca then went to Comandante Mariano Vallejo, who was the commander in this area, who was the military leader. And he asked him to order the Wolfskills to leave their land grant, because he wanted the Wolfskills land. So Vallejo did, and then the governor, whose name was Governor Michael Turina, he also ordered the Wolfskills to leave. Well, John Reed Wolfskill went to Jacob Leese, who was the mayor of Sonoma, and he was also Mariano Vallejo's brother-in-law, and he asked him for some help, but Jacob Leese said, "I'm sorry, if Vallejo says you have to leave your land." And William Wolfskill was at that point down in Southern California. That's where he had his big farm, with all of his orchards and vineyards. So poor John Reed had to move all of his cattle off of his land, and he went to a neighbor's, and he waited. Well, finally, the situation grew even worse, and it ended up in the courts in 1845, and the courts ruled in favor of the Wolfskills. They said to Vaca that he was going to have to leave the land, but it's got even worse, and by the end of 1845, they went and they spoke to Governor Pio Pico, and Pio Pico settled the case basically in favor of the Wolfskills. He told them that the Wolfskills would keep the upper part of Puda Creek, and that's over in the Winters area. So the Wolfskills would keep the upper part of Puda Creek, and the Vaca and Peña family would get the land to the east of the Wolfskills land. And that was the end of the conflict. Now, from what I know, John Reed then actually became a good neighbor of the Peñas. I heard this from one of the Peñas, from Cecilia Peña, and she was telling me that John Reed Wolfskill actually gave the Peña family a Valencia orange tree with very sweet oranges, and that tree is still growing today in front of the Peña Adobe. And I've tasted some of those oranges, and they are wonderful. So it's nice that I've met some of the Peña family. I've met Cecilia and her cousin, and Cecilia and I have become friends. So here we are, years later, and the Wolfskill Peña Vaca land conflict has been resolved. And the interesting thing is, not only has the land grant conflict obviously been resolved years later, but the Wolfskills continued to play a very important role in this valley. John Reed Wolfskill's daughter, Frances, donated 107 acres of the Rancho Rio de los Putos land grant to UC Davis in 1934. And it was so that they would be able to continue experimenting with different farming techniques and growing different kinds of fruits and vegetables, because John Reed actually went on to become really recognized as a major agricultural founder here in the Winters, Sacramento area. And so with the 107 acres that Frances donated, the UC Davis now continues there to operate. It's called the Wolfskill Experimental Farm, and sometimes it's referred to as the Wolfskill Experimental Orchards. And I have been over there to Winters. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. They grow all kinds of strawberries and peaches, and the neat thing is that they have some of the old orange trees that may have come from William Wolfskill's orchards down in Southern California, because William kept sending up all kinds of seedlings and seeds and cattle and wine and brandy to his brother, who was up here in Northern California. And so of course John Reed planted those seeds and seedlings, and some of those some of them could be the ancestors, if you want to say, of the current trees that are there at the Wolfskill Experimental Farm in Winters. And my husband Rich and I have been there and tasted those oranges as well, and they're really delicious. And it was really wonderful to see these beautiful old orange trees with their gnarled, knotty trunks that are they're over 100 years old and still producing oranges. And very exciting, because the great sadness for us as a family is that the Wolfskill orchards in Southern California have all been covered over with concrete. They're all gone. William had his orchards down in what's basically the downtown area of Los Angeles today, and those orchards were all sold off, and the Wolfskill land was sold off in about the 1880s, when land prices down in Southern California and in Los Angeles just went out of sight. And it's very, very sad that we have none of those wonderful orchards left. But up here in Winters, some of those oranges still exist.